Hello, friends, and welcome to Move Into Coherence. I'm Pamela Stokes. In today's episode, we will be talking about a process and hopefully a lifestyle that you can take on for yourself called finding the good. I figured after last week's episode, because it was pretty heavy information, new information, it was a challenge for a lot of us, that today I would do a nice one where we could have the ability and knowing how to care for ourselves and help us to find the good in life and find it to be easy to do so. So let's get into it. We'll start with our 3 bells, and then we will do the waking and shaking. So I'll need you to have a little space for yourself for that. And then we will get into the learning and the process of finding the good. So let's begin. Thank you for being here. I do appreciate you. These bells came from Mary Morrissey in the Brave Thinking Masters group, and I am so pleased that I received these. They're from Tibet. We do 3 rings. And we wait until the ringing ends. I will now do the waking and shaking, which is a 3-part motion. So if you would please come to standing and join in. I'll tip my camera down so you can see more of me that way. All right. So the first part of waking up is, or the first part of waking and shaking is waking up. And we do this by having our feet in line with our shoulders, shoulder width apart. And then what we do is we bring our knees in towards each other, bent knees. We bend our elbows so our hands are up towards our shoulders. We round our back and bend forward and drop the head down. So we're getting small into a ball. And then slowly let your legs and belly and arms and back get long, reach up, tip your head up, look up, and then let your arms float down by your sides. And take a breath, take a break, and notice what's letting go, what's able to let go. And then we'll do that again. Knees bend, they come in toward each other. We bend the elbows so the hands come up towards the shoulders. Curl the back, get round and drop down, get small. And then slowly legs and belly and back and arms get long, reach up, tip your head up, look up, and then let your arms float down by your sides. And breathe here. And you can smile, it's okay. Even if you're having a bad moment, sometimes smiles can just lighten it all up. The next part is the tongue. Very simply, you're just going to press the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth in the center of the roof. Press it gently up, and then slowly release it over the course of about 5 seconds. Here we go. Press the tip of the tongue up onto the roof of the mouth. And then slowly release that. Softening the tongue all the way to the root. Great. And we'll pause here and notice how you feel. You may notice your digestive tract just got a little softer and longer, maybe. Maybe you feel some gurgling. Gurgling's always a good thing. In our world, in the somatic body work world. All right. It means your peristalsis is working. It means your gut is going. And then the third part of this is a quick shake. And it looks kind of silly, but it's very, very good for our fascial network and for our muscles and blood and lymph and all of it. So let's go ahead and start wagging your tail like you're a happy dog. And let your legs be wiggly and let your arms be wiggly. So everything's just giving a little shake. And this is gentle. Don't have to do it with too much force. It's just a gentle shaking. And let that shaking move up to the top of the head, up the spine, and pause, and then motorboat sound with your loose lips, and then notice how you feel. Let's just take a moment here and breathe and notice the state of mind that you're having right now. And maybe you notice physical sensations in the body. So if you'd like to put that in the chat, anything you're noticing about that would be wonderful to see what's happening for you. For myself, I feel enlivened. Okay. And tingling. And tingling to me indicates that I am alive. Yeah, it's an aliveness sensation. All right. So what we're doing here today is finding the good. And finding the good is a rename for something that I learned through Dr. Rick Hanson. He's a psychologist and also a Buddhist meditator. And he's written a few books. They're very good. I have them over here. Happiness, Rewiring Happiness, and I can't remember now. I should have written this down, but they'll be in the show notes. His titles will be there. And what we're doing here is we are basically rewiring the brain, the nervous system. This is what he calls, and I love this, self-directed neuroplasticity. It's a lot of big words there. So self-directed, meaning we can do it ourselves. Neuroplasticity is where we can change the way our nervous system works. We can rewire or repattern the pathways of information. We can do that. It's one of our superpowers, you could say. So that's what we're doing when we do this process, is we are bringing in information, allowing our body to feel it and notice it. And that way we're making a pathway. And we can use that pathway again and again and again. So the more we use it, it's kind of like a rut in a road. The wheel is just going to more easily gravitate there. Or kind of like building a trail. You're clearing away all of the debris so that you have a nice, clean trail. And that makes it easier to use that pathway. So that's what we're doing when we do this practice. We're using our awareness, we're using our body sensations, and we're creating a pathway for good. Now, I've heard this said, and I don't think Rick Hanson says this, but other people have said this, is for every negative thought, it's good to have 3 positive ones to balance out the information that's going into the body. So, we've got to kind of make up for our negative thoughts. If we have negative thoughts or if we have a negative experience, then adding 3 positives in is a good way to help even that out. Now, sometimes what can happen, and oftentimes I should say, that we confuse what is familiar with good. So in other words, if you're used to being yelled at, or if you're used to being belittled and put down, that can be familiar because you're used to it, you've had it happen, and that can be construed as a good thing. You know, if you were paid attention to, you got some attention, even if it was negative attention, that can become what we call good. So we can have a lot of confusion around this, and this is actually a pretty common experience that I have found with clients, is that they they are confused about what actually feels good. So let's do a little mini experiment here. I'd like you to think of something that, like, let's say a food that you don't like. Just noticing, thinking about a food that you don't like. Maybe you don't like cooked spinach. I don't know. Just think about that. It's like, yeah, no, that doesn't feel good. So there's something about the body that's kind of cringing, maybe getting small, maybe constricting. And now think of a food that you do like. Yeah, and you might notice that for me, I feel expanded, I feel softer. So there are cues within our fascia and within our messaging system in the body. There are cues that say, this is good and this is not so good. And it's universally true that when we feel expanded, here's some words for the good: expanded and soft and light and sparkly, bubbly, full, round. There's a lot of words that people describe their sensations in the body that are pleasant. And that's universally true. So if we are confused from our upbringing or experiences, and something that's tight and constrictive and hard and dark and pointy is familiar, we might consider that to be the good. So in my work, what I do to help people is to help them to feel what it feels like to feel okay, and how important it is to feel okay. I like to say it's not just important, it's vital. And what I mean by that is vital towards life, right? That life is always seeking more life. And so if we're doing something that creates that feeling of there is more life here, that increases our vitality. It's not a self-indulgent behavior, nor are we undeserving of this feeling good. It's vitally important. So in this episode, what we can do is, by doing this practice and learning this practice, you will have a tool that you can use for all of your days to find the good and to know what that feels like for you. The reason why it may come about that we feel that good is unfamiliar to us is that we have a piece along the way of shame. Now, shame is important. Don't get me wrong. We need some, because if we didn't, we would maybe go around, being destructive in a group. We're a social species. Okay. So we have to belong. And what shame does is it says, you're not in the group anymore if you do that thing. And that's a good way to keep a group together. However, when it keeps running the show, right, when we keep feeling that shame over and over again, we may hide it away, we may conceal it, but it's there and it's running the show. It's telling us how to do things and how to get along and behave and all of that. So when we conceal it, we don't want to feel it. It's the message that we don't belong, we don't deserve this, the undeserving part of that thought of feeling good. So again, one of the things that I do with people is we find ways, easy ways, gentle ways to release the shame and to remedy that. And it can be done, and it's actually kind of fun, and it doesn't require a whole lot of time. So if you're interested in releasing some shame and getting to feel more free in your body, that is one of the things that I love doing with people. The shame, feeling the shame is important, like I said, so that we can be part of a group, but it also can be destructive if it's too much or if it keeps running. And it's also a master emotion. Brene Brown, who's studied shame for decades and has written a couple of books, you may want to check her out. I'll have a link to that as well. She's got a great couple of TED Talks that you can watch too on shame, but it's a binding emotion. She calls it the master emotion. And what it does is it binds up anger, and it binds up frustration, and it binds up sadness and grief, but it also binds up joy and feeling okay. So it is the one that kind of keeps us from allowing that full joyful feeling. Shame does that. And like I said, it's totally remedied with these processes that I have that have an effect to remove the shame, so that we can feel the joy, so that we can feel the good feelings more easily. And the feeling of shame comes about because we have had an interpersonal bridge broken. And this can be parent to child, or teacher to student, or even peer to peer. Something broke, the interpersonal bond broke somehow. And so we have to rebuild the bridge. And that's what we do in the shame work, is we start by feeling that it's resolvable, something that we can get through. And even if the person's no longer living, we can still do the shame work and release that. So it is possible. All right. Well, what I'd like to do now is to get into let's see if there's anything else I wanted to talk about. So we're talking about awareness. This is important. The key really to life, I would say, is awareness. And they're talking about this more and more. Oh, I know why. What else I wanted to bring up. We are being, I would say, convinced over the course of the millennia that we are less than. We're being convinced that we don't have any power. We don't have any say. We can't control anything. We're out of control. We're being convinced that we need to stay small, that we need to stay voiceless, that our dreams are not anything to pursue, that we have to just get a job and go to work and do our thing, and then we die, right? Like, this is life. Life sucks, and then you die. And there's taxes and death, and right? Like, these are all the things that we've been learning as a society over the millennia. I feel that this has been actually intentional. In fact, I know it has been intentional by the powers that shouldn't be wanting to have control and to laud it over us. They're in charge, and we have to follow what they say, and that's just how it is. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not true. What we've been led to believe is that we cannot do much in our lives, that we just have to just go along with the status quo. And this, unfortunately, keeps people kind of small. So a big part of my work as well is when we release the effects of trauma and the trauma response and the shame and all of this, is that people start to feel enlivened. We talked about post-traumatic growth last week, and or 2 weeks ago. And one of the things about that is a lot of times people will find a mission, they'll have their purpose. And this is a beautiful thing. When we look at the big picture, we are all important. Each individual person is a sovereign being. You make your own choices every day. You get to decide how you feel. You get to decide what you think. And that's your choice. And that's you. And no one gets to do that for you because it's how you feel. You're right there in that spot. They can't tell you that you can't feel okay. Well, they can try, but these practices are going to help to make it so that you realize you can feel good. You're in charge, right? We're getting charged up when we do these processes of releasing shame, releasing the trauma, resolving it, feeling the good that we can feel. And we can do this. We have the capacity in our brain to imagine something, and the brain thinks it's real. So if we can imagine a scene that where it feels good to us, so we can imagine that, our brain doesn't know, well, are you actually there or are you just experiencing that? That's pretty cool aspect of the brain. So we can keep putting things in, good things in, so that we can create this feeling of aliveness and expansion. Because when we have expansion, when we have space, we've talked about this before, when there's space and expansion, that allows that ambient energy, which is everywhere, allows it to spin. And that's what we get when we create. So we're actually creating matter. We're creating things out of thoughts and feelings. And this is probably scary to some people who want to be in charge. They want to have power over. When we step into our own, and I call this soft power, right? We're not, charging the streets. We're inside. We're feeling strong. We're feeling grounded and centered. And this allows us to have that spaciousness so that we can create. We could also call it a calm confidence. And the body helps us to do that. This is one of the processes, this finding the good process, that will create that sensation for you, those feelings for you. And we can make it permanent because we can direct our neuroplasticity. We can make that the way it is for us. And I think that scares some of those people who would like to have power over us. So that's how we win, okay? It's not a battle here. We don't need to fight. We can defend ourselves, but we just really can step into our power just by being. And learning these things that you're learning on this podcast are going to allow that to happen. So this is another thing that I help people with is to manifest. In the Brave Thinking Masters training that I had, this is part of, this is what we do. And it's not a matter of thinking something, feeling something, and practicing that. It's not all of it. That's a big part of it. We're making neural pathways that tell our nervous system, this is real for me. I'm going to be in this situation. This is what I want. And I put myself there. But it also brings up the problems, like what's getting in the way when we think those thoughts. Like if I were to wave a magic wand, I said this to somebody yesterday, if I were to wave a magic wand and make all your wishes come true, how would it feel? And some people would be like, oh, that sounds scary. It's frightening. I don't think I can do that. And right, it sounds hard. So we get through all of those limitations, we get through those blocks and we get rid of those. We find our soft power and now manifestation's easy. But it also requires that we do something. So we're not just sitting there dreaming, right? We're not just dreaming about something. We're actually taking action steps. And that's what we do in order to manifest and to co-create. So we have to feel that we're good. We have to feel the good. We have to find the good so that we can get to that place where we can actually co-create with the universe and do that manifesting part. Self-directed neuroplasticity. Love it. So let's go ahead and go through the 4 parts of finding the good. The 4th is actually optional, but this is a process that can be very, very helpful for people. This is labeled in Dr. Rick Hanson's work as HEAL, H-E-A-L. The H stands for have, and what that means is you have an experience or notice that there's something good happening, beneficial, and or you can create a situation where that's happening for you. Like if you think of a scene in nature, maybe a dear friend, your mother's eyes, that's a really nice one, a pet's face, maybe a moment when you had an award given to you, something that was pleasant for you, an experience. I like to think of the birth of my children and, seeing them for the first time. Those kinds of things are really ways to have a good experience. But it could also be something simple, like you're walking along and you see this flower that's bloomed. You just can pause there and say, wow, nature did that. Life did that. Life made this pattern for me to see and for other creatures to see and to smell and so forth. So it's something that small. Or maybe you're feeling like there's freedom in your body. There's parts of you that don't hurt. Maybe you have pain in some places, but there's also parts where it doesn't hurt. Maybe your little pinky toe on your left foot doesn't hurt today. So something like that could also be the have part. Just a simple experience is possible. And that's the first step. And then the second step, the E, stands for enrich. And what Dr. Hanson talks about are doing these various things that can help you to enrich that experience. We are invited to breathe, take a few breaths in, just slow it down, just pause there, noticing, just breathing, letting that come in. We may notice what happens in the body. Do we feel softening or warmth or roundness, the body sensations? We may notice also that there's an emotion that comes up. Maybe we're feeling a little giddy, a little joyful, a little, oh, that's like, that's really pleasant, and we get a smile on the face. So what's the feeling tone? We may also have thoughts that are associated with that experience, and these could be remembering when you received some flowers from someone or you got them for yourself, as Miley Cyrus recently wrote a song about. So the associated thoughts, that's how we enrich the experience. So we've taken something that happened, or we create in our mind something that is happening for us, and then we do these processes of enrichment. And we can notice in this enrichment phase, what's helpful here? What's nourishing me? What's new about this? What's exciting? And this is just a little side note, but our brain prefers novelty to something that's been there for a long time. So a long-standing love relationship is great, but novelty, ooh, what's new? We get curious about it. Our brain goes into focus mode and we want that thing. So this is why, unfortunately, affairs can happen, even in a relationship where they love each other so much. It's very easy. The new, the novel can get us, can lead us somewhere, even though that isn't real. It's just, in our imagination, oh, that person is so perfect. And you want to know everything about them. So when you are enriching, notice what's new, what's novel. That's going to really get the brain like, yes, get it behind the new information that's coming in. It's exciting. All right. The third part is absorb. And this part is you're going to let the feeling, let the sensations, the emotion, let that all come in more deeply into your heart. Maybe you feel it through the neural pathways to your brain. Maybe you feel it in your fascia. Just let this come all the way in. And I like to say it comes all the way into your cells, all the trillions and trillions of cells that we have. Some people say we have 100 trillion cells. It's a lot of cells. So that information can really be absorbed into all of us. It actually creates electrical charges. When it's positive information like this, it increases our charge. It charges us up, and we are electric. We run on electricity. We create our electricity with our thoughts and our feelings and our movements and all of that, and the sunlight and standing on the earth and drinking good water, eating good food. We get our energy these ways. Also with our attitude and our mood and our experiences create the energy. So you can imagine that as you're taking this in, this good experience, beneficial experience, you're absorbing it, you're letting your cells get that energy into them. So you are energizing yourself. All right. And you can get that feeling anytime you like, because you've made a pathway to it. So that's more or less all that is required to find the good, those 3 steps. And then there's a 4th step, which is optional. And I feel that this is basically the key to a process that in somatic experiencing from Peter Levine's work is called pendulation. And this is where we would have the good thing here. And I'm just using very basic terms, good and not so good, right? When we have something good and we have something that's not so good, an experience that was bad, a traumatizing experience or emotional challenge, we can go back and forth between these 2 things, pendulate between them. And that allows this is kind of what EFT does too, the tapping, is it allows the nervous system to find calm and also feel the negative or the constrictions of the negative thing. So when we do this back and forth, we can lighten it up and we can find ease around that thought or that belief or the not enoughness or the undeservedness, or there's people trying to have power over me, or I'm not good enough. All of those things. So the 4th step is the L for heal, right? It's the last letter that represents the word link. And that's what we are doing, is we're linking this good sensation in the moment. We've just absorbed it all in. And now maybe we would have a thought that we could say, oh, I'm looking at this rose over here. This is my good, right? Finding the good. I've absorbed it in. Wow, I feel really good. And then I can also have a thought at the same time. I can think, well, the rose reminds me that I, had this experience and I found a dead animal under a rose bush. And it was really traumatizing to me. I'm making this up. But just imagine that this experience and the rose go together. I can link them together. And what that does is it eases us out of the difficult part of that thought. It's pretty cool. Our brain's pretty amazing. So the self-directed neuroplasticity, that's what it's all about. We're disarming negative things by using this positive thing that we've just basically created for ourselves. Now, what can happen when we get into the negative? That's why this is optional. We don't have to do this part all the time, but if we do, what can happen is we start to ruminate. We start to think about the negative thing over and over, and it cycles through and it doesn't really get better. So, what we're doing here is if we feel that that is happening, then we would go back to the positive and focus there on that. So, we don't have to ruminate anymore and cycle through. So, I would love to do this now and to practice this finding the good together. One of the things I think that, well, we are going to talk about this more definitely next week. And yes, I am having a podcast next week, even though, excuse me, even though it is Christmas Eve. If you are celebrating Christmas Eve, it's Christmas Eve day. I am still doing it because not everybody celebrates Christmas anyway, and I just figure it's a good day to learn about these things. So I want to teach you about something called Bions. They have many names. I'm just going to touch on this briefly now, but next week we will be talking about this more in depth. Back in the 1800s, at the same time that Louis Pasteur was doing his fraudulent science, which we talked about last week, there was a man, another scientist named Béchamp, who was doing the actual science that Pasteur stole and then made up stuff about it. That's what we call the germ theory. It was just made up. Well, anyway, Béchamp, what he studied besides fermentation and the process of that, which is the work that Pasteur stole, besides that, he also discovered there were these little energy-filled vesicles, these little bodies, and he called them microzymas, and he found them in even million-year-old chalk that he had dug out of the hill. And that's how he was working with fermentation, and he was working with life generation. He found this started when he was asked to study fermentation and to figure it out, and realized I'm not adding anything. I'm not adding anything, but this is still happening. And he realized it must be in the living thing. So yes, indeed, it is. These are microzymas. Well, he found them, and then another person found them, and another person found them over the course of many years, 100+ years. And they are in our blood. They every time a cell breaks open and breaks down, all these little things are released, and they are filled with energy. Well, this is what we are made of. These are, after we die, still alive, no matter how dead we are. These things will still be alive. And these are what is transferred to create a baby. So we have my bions and my partner's bions come together, and that's what makes the cell to make the embryo. Well, we'll learn more about bions later, but why did I bring that up? These are our energy vesicles. So when we feel good, when we stand on the earth barefoot, when we drink good water, when we eat good food, when we breathe well, we get charged up. Our bions, these little microzymas, get full of energy. And that's what creates more life. And we'll, like I said, talk about that more next time. So that's another reason why we're doing this, is we're in charge, we're charging up, and we're taking charge, and we're filling up our bions with energy. All right, so finding the good is what I call the process that we just talked about, that Dr. Rick Hansen calls HEAL, HEAL. And we're basically going to go ahead and experience this now. So we're just going to bring to mind something that's good, an experience that you had recently would be helpful. Maybe I'm just thinking about it like just drinking good water. I'm going to have a sip. I'm just feeling how the moisture feels in my mouth and down my throat and just actually enjoying that, taking a moment for that. So bring to mind something that you've had recently or that you like, something that's good experience. And in my example, I was working with a stapler, and I was holding it and just thinking, wow, this is amazing. Somebody designed this, and it can do this, and when I push on this, I get paper to connect together, and it's a little metal thing. It's just amazing to me. Somebody designed a stapler. And my previous married name in Japanese means stapler, hotchkiss. I think that's so funny. Anyway, that was a side note. A stapler is amazing. Or here I'm looking at these bells and the ringing, and just knowing that when you ring them, they ring and ring, and you can hear the ring for a long time. Something like that could be a thought that you have. So just bring something to mind. Let's try this together. And it can be big. It doesn't have to be little, but any good experience will do. Bring that to mind. And let the thought kind of dribble down through your head, through your face, through your neck, down into your chest and your belly. Yeah. And just allow yourself to notice, breathe it in. We might take 3 breaths here through the nose, breathing in the pleasant, finding the good, breathing in the good. Notice maybe what parts of you feel it. I feel it in my belly right now. I feel it in my chest. I'm actually feeling it all the way down to my toes in this moment. But just notice in your body where you feel it. And I have heightened body sense awareness. So if you don't feel it that much, that's okay. Maybe you feel just a tiny little smile on your face. Maybe you just feel warm, or soft. We're just experiencing that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And notice you could ask yourself, is this a new sensation? Is it helpful to me? Are my bions filling up? Is it nourishing me? All right. And then the next step is to absorb that and to let the sensations expand and fill up your cells, fill up your bions. And to let your brain know that this is good. We want these good sensations. It's okay to feel okay. It's vital. It increases our vitality. It's vitally important to feel okay. So absorbing that in, all the way in. And notice what that does for you. And again, because of our past experiences, our familiar experiences, this may be a challenge for you to feel this okayness. And that's okay. Sometimes it takes practice to let that come in. But this is where that individual spark that you are, this is where we get to be our best self, our highest self, is when we notice what's good. We bring that to mind and allow ourselves to feel it, to really know.
Here's some things that I think maybe are helpful to know as you're allowing this to absorb in. It's helpful to know that when we feed ourselves, right? When we feed ourselves and we're allowing ourselves to notice ourselves and connecting with ourselves, we're using a part of the brain called the insula. It allows us to self-reflect and to notice and to connect internally with us. And the insula also does the same thing when we connect to other. So that's pretty cool. What that means is if I connect with someone, the brain doesn't know the difference between that other and self. So if I connect to self, the brain can interpret that as other. What I mean to say is it allows the possibility, the ease of connecting with other when we connect to self. So we are individuals having an individualized experience, but we're also part of a group, not just of humans, but of the whole life, all the beings in life. And energetically, with the vibrations, the frequencies that we are, interact with everything. So we are connected. And when we feel into and notice ourselves, that allows for more ease in connecting with others because it's using the same part of the brain. It's pretty cool. So I find that some people who have struggles with loneliness and struggles with connecting to other, or they don't really see other because they're in survival mode because they're in a trauma response, which makes perfect sense. Big trauma, then you've got to take care of yourself. You got to support yourself. We can tend to get selfish rather than self-caring. And when we like ourselves and when we reflect on that and we're feeling good about that, that allows us to feel more connected to it all. And now we're able to engage. We're able to engage with other people with ease and comfort. We're not afraid. Are they going to think something about us or say something about us? Yeah, it's a really nice thing that we have built into us that allows us to connect. So we've absorbed, that's our third step. We've absorbed it fully. And then we could do a final step where we're allowing that goodness that just came in to help us to disarm something negative that may be related to what we were sensing. So in my write-up example with the stapler, I remember a time when I accidentally stapled my finger, like one of the points went into my finger. I was a child and like, oh gosh. So I remembered that and I could actually feel a little bit of the memory of the experience. But at the same time, I have absorbed all of this goodness, these good sensations from recognizing the beautiful artistry of the technology of stapling. As I've absorbed that, I can combat or disarm the negative of the staple going into my finger. It helps to balance it out. It helps to link that. So we're changing the pathway of the experience, the negative experience. We're changing the pathway to now it's not so bad. It's actually associated with these good feelings. So if you are a person who finds that it's hard to feel good, You don't really know what good feels like. It's unfamiliar. You haven't practiced it because it's been unavailable to you or scary. Start small. Start small. Start by noticing things. Like I was saying, our brain wants novel. It seeks out novelty. So when there's something new, when we get curious, combats shame completely when we're curious. So if we get curious about something, wondering, I wonder how do they make aluminum cans? I don't know why that came into my mind, but how does that happen? How do they make glass? Something like that. You could get curious about it. When we get curious, now that the shame can fall away and we're going for something novel, the brain loves novel. And when we bring that information in, we can absorb that in and let ourselves really physically feel it. This is growth. And you're doing that. You're in charge of that, right? No one's in there doing that for you. You're doing that for yourself. This is empowering. This is our place. We get to be the ones calling the shots. Yeah, when we step into that position. All right. So that is what I have for you today with our learning. And what I'd like to do now is hear from you if there's anything that you noticed in that process that you'd like to share with others so that we can get this information to be more social with each other. The thing I wanted to remind us all is why I'm doing these podcasts live. I felt it was important for myself to feel connected to my audience, but also for you to feel that you're part of something. Because what I'd love for this to do, this is my vision here with the manifestation piece. My vision is that this grows and grows and becomes a thing that people do on Sundays at 11:11. Oh, I'm going to go listen to Move Into Coherence. We're going to go be part of a group that does these things together. That's what my hope is, because there's a lot of people who commit to a weekly, let's say, a church service. But if you're not a religious person, or if you have a desire to be part of both things, you can do both. But to me, that's kind of the idea, is that I can share some information. You can learn some things about the body and about yourself and about the world that we live in. And we're all in this together. So I'm not seeing anything in the chat, but thanks anyway. If you are thinking these thoughts and didn't get a chance to share it, maybe you don't have the ability to chat right now, to put things in the chat. But that is a big part of why I'm doing these live. All right. And then also, in just talking about next week, I just want to make sure that you do know that we are going to be here next week. And the way to get information on when is it happening and what's the topic is if you go to my YouTube channel, which is where you're watching this live, Move Into Coherence. If you hit subscribe, then you will get notifications that that this is happening. So that's kind of an easy way to do that. Then you don't have to wait for the link to show up in an email or however you heard about this, maybe a Facebook post or something. So subscribe, and then that way you'll know when to come. So we are meeting next week, even though it's Christmas Eve day. And I'd like to now, at the end of this process, this finding the good process, to do a little heart coherence. And I want to say also, thank you so much for being here today. I really do appreciate it. It warms my heart. It makes me feel alive. So thank you. And even if you can't be here live, you watching this, I've seen the views, and I do appreciate all of that happening. And for you as well, so that you are moving into coherence. Coherence is where we are, our optimal well-being. That's what we're looking for. So let's do a little heart coherence now. That will allow this new information to be taken in easily by the subconscious mind. And then we'll do the 3 bells, and that'll be the end of our day today together. And I'll see you next time. So send yourself some appreciation for joining in. Give yourself a little pat on the back, literally. It actually does. There's some acupoints there that can help to let yourself take that in. It's okay to feel okay. It's vitally important. So find the good, and we'll do this as often as we can, several times throughout the day, many times throughout the day, if possible. Yeah, it gets easier. Self-directed neuroplasticity. We are in charge. Our bions are waiting for more energy all the time. They want it. They love it. They create with it. So let's do that for ourselves. Yeah. Okay. Let's do some heart coherence, and then we'll see each other next time. Thanks for being here. We'll allow the awareness to come to our heart, and you can bring your hand there if that helps you. And we'll slow the breathing down a little deeper and a little slower than usual. And maybe 5 or 6 seconds in and 5 or 6 seconds out through the nose. And then imagine that that breath is flowing in and out through your heart. And then bringing to mind something that helps you to feel gratitude or appreciation, or maybe even joy. And we'll continue the breathing through the heart. And you can imagine on the inhale to bring that into any part of yourself that maybe needs a little extra today, a little extra support. Maybe there's tightness or pain or sadness or something else. Just send that there with the inhale. And then on the exhale, let that come out into your environment. And you're sharing this. You're sharing your coherence. Great. And then just bring yourself over the next couple of breaths. Bring yourself back to your natural breathing. Relax your hand. Let your eyes open to a soft gaze. And let's do receiving hands here. I think this is important. as we're finding the good, we're practicing finding the good, we're going to allow that to come in and really receive it. It's safe to feel safe. It's safe to feel satisfied, and it's safe to feel connected. We close our hands into soft fists by bringing the pinky first, pinky, ring, middle, index. Close the hands like that. Yeah, and that allows our nervous system to know it's safe to receive all this good stuff. Great. Thanks for joining in today. Send yourself some appreciation for doing so. This has been Move Into Coherence. I'm Pamela Stokes. Take it easy. And now we'll do our 3 bells. See you next time.